In this module, we're going to talk about the purchase contract. And in doing this, a real estate agent that you have, it's going to represent you and write this contract. And unless you're doing the things yourself, you're going to have an agent that has it. But I want you to know what's in there, and I want you to get some of these tips on things that you can do. First thing to know is that everything in that purchase contract, it's all negotiable. You can put whatever you want in there, change things around. Obviously, the best contract is a win-win. Seller wins, buyer wins. Both parties are happy. That makes things go nicely. So the second thing I want to talk about is the due diligence. Due diligence is when you have the first week, 10 days, 14 days to go through and get inspections done on the house. The termite will be done. Your appraisal will get done within this time period too. The due diligence is your opportunity to go in and make sure that this house is in condition that you find acceptable. And it's your opportunity to find out things perhaps about the neighborhood, things you didn't know. And if there's something that you don't like throughout that due diligence period, you can simply back out of the contract. You get your earnest money deposit back, and you go your way, and the seller will just put it back on the market. So pay attention to whatever day limit you have in the due diligence period. Again, that's something you can modify in the purchase contract. It may specify 10 days, but there's a blank spot there. If you want 14 days, you can add that. So long as the seller accepts it in the contract, then it's fine. If you want to entice the seller to accept your offer by going with a smaller due diligence period and putting 5 or 7 days there, that's okay too. It just means that you have to work faster to make sure you get all your inspections done. Possession. This is a big thing, especially if you're selling a house and buying a new one. Possession is when escrow closes and you're giving up possession of the house to the new buyer. When you're selling a house and buying another one, you want to time everything so they close on the same time. You want to be able to move from the house you're selling to the house you're buying, right? Without having a place in between, having to put everything in the truck and maybe just keep the moving truck for a few extra days and have it parked. You want to avoid that stuff. A good way to avoid that is when you're giving up possession of a house you're selling, you put possession would be close of escrow plus 3 or maybe 5 days. A lot of people don't realize that you can do that. Agents don't like to put that in there because they feel like, well, you know, the seller's not going to like that. From personal experience, one, the sellers don't tend to have a problem with it. If they do, they'll come back on a counteroffer and change that. Secondly, I don't think that most of the agents out there pay attention to that. So the seller doesn't know because, or the buyer doesn't know because the agent's not pointing it out to them. So if you're on the buying side and it's important that you get in that house quickly, then that's something you want to pay attention to when that counteroffer comes back or when you're making that offer. So giving up possession with a close of escrow plus 3 plus 5, that's a great idea. And it just helps a seller time things to go from one house to another. Obviously, if you're selling a vacant house, then it doesn't matter. You can give up possession on that same day. Timed acceptance. In the offer, when you're buying a house, you'll put on there, okay, you have 24 hours to get back to me. I think in most of the contracts, it's going to say 72 hours or 3 days. But you can change that, and agents are real big on putting, well, I want to hear back in 24 hours. So I just want to touch base with that a little bit. If a seller in a seller's market, if they're anticipating having multiple offers, and you're writing an offer on a Wednesday, and you're going to put, well, I want to hear something back in 24 hours so that you can get a response back on Thursday, because you're trying to beat the weekend traffic, right? That's when everybody comes out, they make the offers. Chances are that's not going to work. So the seller may or may not even see the 24 hours there. Bottom line is they probably won't care, right? If you were the seller, you'd want your house on the market over the weekend. So even if you put 24 hours, don't get discouraged if they don't come back to you right away. They might make you wait till Monday because they want to see the traffic that comes through and see if they get another offer. If they go beyond that time period that you specify, you don't have to accept the offer if they accept it. So you give them 24 hours to respond and they get back to you 36 hours later. You could go, sorry, you're past the 24-hour time. I'm not buying it. I put an offer over here on that house. So it kind of puts the ball back into your court. But it's important that you know what's going to go on with that if you're trying to pressure them into answering a little quicker. Counter offers. When you make a purchase offer, I'm going to give you $240,000. The seller wants $250,000. They're going to write a counter offer if they choose to counter. They're going to write a counter offer, maybe come back somewhere in the middle. But it can be more than just price. They can counter with, okay, you want a 30-day escrow. I want you to do a 14-day escrow. I want you to close faster. I'll give it to you for this price, but I want you to close faster. So just know on the counter offers that may come back, it's not just going to be price. Sometimes there's other thing that's in there. So be ready for that. And it's one more thing to think about if you're going to counter. If you want to go ahead and accept a lower price as a seller, and you say, okay, well, I'm going to accept this lower price, but here's another condition I want. Your due diligence period. You wanted 14 days. I want you to do it in 7. I want things moving faster. So just little things that you can do there with that counter offers. One of the other questions that comes up quite a bit is the earnest money deposit. When you're making an offer on a house to buy, a contract needs an offer, it needs an acceptance, and it also needs a deposit. That's what makes a complete offer. So when you're making an offer on a house, you're going to have to make what they call an earnest money deposit, and this is the $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 that you're going to put down. That money, you need to have it in the bank when you're making the offer, but that money doesn't go anywhere until the seller accepts it. Once the seller accepts your offer, then you take that money and you generally send it over to escrow or title company. The seller doesn't get it. It sits in an account over there and it'll be used towards your purchase. If for some reason you go to pull out of the contract after your due diligence period, when you can't, you could be forfeiting that earnest money deposit to the seller. So something to know on that. All right, that's it about the purchase contract. We'll see you in the next module.